Hi, my name is Angie and welcome to my channel. On this channel, I make simple bullet journaling related content. In this video, I'm going to show you my 2023 new bullet journal setup. This time around, I'm using a notebook by Amanda Rach Lee. This notebook has a vegan leather hardcover, a pen loop, an elastic closure, and 160 GSM paper. This means that the paper is less prone to bleeding and ghosting, and the pages are numbered, and there are 160 of them. I'm not quite sure if this exact model of bullet journal is still available because I bought it earlier on in 2022, but I'll still leave a link down there. First, I'm starting off with my grid spacing guide. As far as I know, this was originally created by Amanda Rach Lee, but essentially this is something you can refer back to as you create different spreads in your notebook to know how many spaces each section should be when you split up a page. A lot of people put the different measurements for each kind of section when you split it up on here, but I personally just put the number of spaces tall and wide the page is. I also am keeping this page very simple and empty so that it's not distracting. Next, I'm working on my 2023 cover page. These numbers took the longest time out of this whole setup to do, so if you're looking to save a little time, maybe try using a font that you're more familiar with. For this new journal setup, I decided to go with a neutral color theme with some botanical doodles. This was inspired by the one and only Leela Journals, who is the queen of neutral colors and botanical doodles. So in this setup, you'll see that I don't use any black pen, marker, or anything else. This makes sure that everything is softer and not as harsh. Next, I'm using this washi tape to make circles with the Crayola Colors of the World markers. Then I'm making these botanical doodles on top. I would like to mention that these botanical doodles are super easy to do. This was actually the first time I ever tried doodling them, and for some reason, I found it easier to do with a pen than with a pencil. So later on, you'll see I don't even try making an outline with pencil. So what I'm pointing out here in just a second is that there is a little bit of bleed through and a little bit of ghosting, but this one's on me. The Crayola markers are a little juicier, and I went over the same spot quite a few times. Next, I'm moving on to my year at a glance / my future log. This page is made because I only set up 1 month at a time. This means that if I have an appointment or if there's a birthday in a month that I haven't set up yet, I have no place to put it, and this is where the future log comes in. The future log is where you put down any events, appointments, birthdays, or anything else going on throughout the year. You can set it up for however many months you want. I personally set it up for a whole year just to make my life a little easier. And here I'm making the different calendars. I would also like to mention that these calendars took a little bit of time to write all the numbers, so I made a little freebie for you guys. I made printable calendars that come in both black and brown, so that you can either use black as a standard color, or if you're also doing a neutral color theme, you can use brown as well. I also made sure that I have calendars that both start on Sunday and on Monday, so if you prefer one over the other, I have you covered. Throughout this whole setup, you'll see that I use the Crayola Colors of the World markers, as I mentioned earlier. The colors I use are all just in the almond shades. I didn't use any of the other shades. I forget which exact markers I used for each setup, but if you look at the video and compare it to the markers, you can probably figure it out pretty easily. So you also see that I didn't put a title Well, you see later on that I didn't put a title saying Future Log or Year at a Glance. This is because I wanted more space to write down events. Also, for those of you who are wondering, there is a difference between a future log and a year at a glance. A year at a glance is just a calendar for you to look at and doesn't have any space for you to put any events or appointments. A future log, on the other hand, is just a list of events and appointments that you had throughout the year. I decided to mix the two together and have the calendar as well as the list, just so it's easier to visualize. I personally use the future log to write down my school calendar, so any days that I have off or when exams are, and as well as appointments that I have, or if I'm meeting up with certain people on certain days, as well as birthdays. But I will admit I don't use it as much for birthdays because I have the reminders on my phone for that. Here you can see I'm placing down washi tape just to add a little color and texture to this page. I decided to cut the washi tapes in half because when they were the full width, they just took up a lot of space and looked a little bulky. And I found that I liked putting the darker color on the outside and the lighter color on the inside. If you can see what I'm doing, hopefully that makes sense. Then I took my pen and drew some more leaf doodles. Well, first I'm taking my pencil, but then I go with my pen and draw more leaf doodles. And I'm trying to vary up the leaf shapes, so not the shape of the branch so much, but more of the shape of the leaves themselves. And then I used a lighter almond shade to just scribble color in the background. Next, I'm going to my content ideas page. This page is just to write down any ideas I have for Instagram posts, YouTube videos, or anything else. So I split this page into two sections. The first section is for anything related to Angie's Bujo, which is this channel and my Instagram. So I split that into two as well, for the Instagram and for the YouTube channel. And then the second section is for anything related to my music, seeing as I'm also a singer-songwriter. So the first section is for anything Instagram or YouTube related, and the second section is actually for podcasts, because I create some podcasts related to my music. You can see that underneath the journal I have a box of the Crayola markers, simply because when you start a journal, you want it to lay flat, but it's so thin at the beginning that you have to have something underneath, if that makes any sense. But you see that I'm writing with this really light color, and at first I liked it, but then later on it felt like the page was really washed out because of these light colors that are kind of in the same shade range. So I actually go over some of the titles with a darker brown fine liner. Next, I'm drawing a leaf doodle though in the middle to separate the two sections and to add just, a little decoration to the page as well. As you can see, this is the point where I decided going with the marker first is easier than trying to doodle it with pencil. So I started doodling it with pencil, and then I just gave up on the pencil. Honestly, these leaf doodles didn't take me very long to draw, even that long one, so it's not very time consuming at all. Next, I'm going in with a darker Crayola Colors of the World marker shade still in the almond range, and loosely coloring in those leaves. I didn't really care that much if it was in the lines, because I'm not very good at coloring in the lines, never have been, so I decided to kind of let it go. On this next page, originally it was going to be a goals page, but then I realized I didn't have a page to write down all of my bullet journal theme ideas. So I took this page and I created space for a header to write down the title of the page, which is Bucho Themes. And then I split the page into 13 sections. The first 12 sections are for each month, so if I have a certain theme that kind of fits one month more than it fits the others, I put it under that section. And then the last section, which is bigger than the others, is just for random themes that could really be used at any time in the year. I did this horizontally, but as I was drawing the lines, I realized that if I had done it vertically, it may have given me a little bit more room, but what's done is done, so I had just learned to live with it. Next, I'm taking a Crayola Colors of the World in one of the lightest almond shades, and I'm highlighting every other line because I know the page will get filled up and look a little more lived in once I put the different ideas in there. But at the time, it looked really empty and kind of sad, so I highlighted every other line. And then again, I wrote the initials of the months and random in a lighter color, but I went over it with a darker brown fine liner later on. Next, I have my quote page. So this quote is actually a Taylor Swift quote because she is an amazing songwriter and I love her. But the quote is, "Today is never too late to be brand new." And I think that this is so fitting at any time of the year, but especially in a new year, you have this certain feeling that you can start fresh a little easier than if it were in the middle of the year. And for me, it's also in fall, I started university, so I was going at a different school, and I had a chance to kind of be the person who I wanted to be and not the person who I was known for being, because previously I was in a school district that was K through 12, so you were with the same people the whole time, and so you kind of built a reputation when you were little and you didn't really have a chance for wiggle room. But now that I'm at university, I have a chance to be who I really want to be and not the person that I'm perceived as. So then I'm drawing little sparkle doodles around brand new, and you can't really see it on the video, but I'm taking a lighter almond shade and I'm giving a shadow to brand new. It's a lot more visible in person. It may also just be the lighting that I have, but I also decided to put the quote page there because on the next page I have my goals. And quotes are always motivating, and you want to have a little motivation when you're looking at your goals. So I decided to only have 5 goals, and I talked a little bit about this in my previous video. But when you make goals, you want to make sure that you don't make too many, because then it just becomes a lot of pressure, and if you don't achieve them all, you kind of start feeling like a failure, or at least I do, even though you're not a failure. So I made only 5 goals to make it a little more achievable. And then I also left plenty of space so I can write down my progress and track my progress throughout the year for each goal. Next, I'm just putting some more leaf doodles because it's part of the theme. Now I'm flipping back to that previous page because again, everything just looked so washed out. So I decided to add a pop of color with this washi tape, which looks red on video, but is actually brown. And then I drew some sparkle doodles with this dark brown fine liner. And it just added more color to the page and made it look less, again, washed out. And like I said previously, I went over the initials of the month as well as random, and then I went over Angie's Bujo and music, and this just made the page feel so much better in my opinion. So now we're getting to the flip through of my bullet journal. Just a reminder that the calendar freebies are in the description, and I also have all of the materials I used linked in the description as well. So looking at my cover page here, I actually went in, as you can see, and added some washi tape just because I felt that the page needed a little something because it felt a little empty. And as you can see, in this theme, I went for minimal, neutral colors, but you know, minimal doesn't mean empty. So, again, this future log will look much better once it's filled in. I've already started to fill it in, and it looks much better already. But thank you so much for tuning into this video. If you liked it, you know, give it a thumbs up. It helps me in the algorithm. And if you want to see more videos, make sure to hit subscribe, and if you hit the notification bell, you get notified whenever I do something new, which is pretty cool. So thank you again. I hope you have wonderful holidays and a happy new year ahead, and I'll see you next time. Bye.